Joe Rogan is back in the news, baby. I know I'm not going to be talking about this Neil Young bullshit that's going on with Spotify. I don't really care about that. But if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, you know that I have pretty strong opinions on canceling somebody for something that they've said in the past. And this is probably no exception. Yeah, so if you haven't heard yet, Joe Rogan has come on fire on top of like the Neil Young garbage because like compilation was like made or released or some shit like that, where it's just him saying the N-word, like, I don't know, a bunch of times, like, over and over, like, just the single word. I'm not gonna, like, show it in this video, obviously, but if you look real hard, you can find it. But, I think this is some garbage, personally, and saying that as someone who was super edgy when I was, like, 15, was watching iDubbbz in like 2016 or something like that when he would just say the word openly. But if you want to watch the video, you can watch it, but all you need to know is that there's a compilation like 25 seconds or something of just Joe saying the N-word over and over, just like the singular word. But we're gonna take a look at Joe's Instagram response to it and see what he says. So let's take a look.
Hello friends, there's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast.
Yeah, and so like for the record, if you've done as many podcasts and talked for as long as he has, you will have said some dumb shit.
Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said it in years.
Yeah, so what he's saying here is definitely notable. I think whenever you're looking into these kind of situations, context is definitely key. When you dig up old clips, you should never hold it to the standard of today. You should always hold it to the standard of when it was done. I mean, I'm not excusing it or anything, but when people say, oh, the 2011 Modern Warfare 2 lobbies were a different time, they absolutely were, right? So when people say there is no context where it's okay, now 1000% I agree with that. But people had different viewpoints back in 2010. I'm not saying it's okay. Don't misconstrue that. But context is definitely relevant, especially when you're trying to deplatform someone and cancel someone for saying something.
But for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was.
Yeah, and like this is exactly what I was saying with iDubbbz. This is pretty much what iDubbbz did back in 2016 or whatever the hell, 2015. And people were like, yeah, fine with that. But a lot has changed in the past 6 years, and people should be aware that nobody really cared back in 2016. Is it wrong, or should people have cared? I don't know, maybe. But it's just like the fact that people didn't really care if it was used in that context back then. Like, I used to think that saying it was okay as long as it wasn't derogatory towards a person of color, and that definitely isn't true today. Was that true in 2016? Probably not, because I was a dumbass, like, 14-year-old or whatever the hell, but I digress.
The clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s, and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, and like, specifically like in Pulp Fiction, like Quentin Tarantino, he just says it hard R multiple times. And that came out in 1994, and as far as I'm aware, no one really cared. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive in 1994, but anyway.
I was also talking about how there's not another word like it in the entire English language, because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it, and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist and toxic, but a black person can use it, and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, this is like kind of off topic, but I think it's kind of interesting how people, like black people, they use it in so many different ways. Like they use it like a lot of the times just as a synonym for like homie or bro. Obviously, it can be used derogatorily, but yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist, you fucked up.
That's true.
I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment. Because I never thought it would ever be taken out of context and put in a video like that. And now that it is, holy shit, it looks bad.
It does look pretty bad.
It's part of also me doing this podcast for thousands of hours, thousands of episodes, over 12 years. I said a lot of fucking stupid shit, which is fine when you're talking about most things, but not when you're talking about race. And there's another clip.
Okay, we're going to stop it there. We'll go into the other clip. Maybe at some other point, but I'm just going to keep it on topic for this one. And so one more thing I wanted to talk about before this video ends is some of the responses that have been, I guess, addressed, or like some of the responses to this situation. One of the stupidest things out of the situation was an Andrew Yang tweet, and I'm sure you have heard about this. I liked Andrew Yang back in the 2020 elections. I haven't really followed anything that he said past then. I know he's like doing like the governor or the mayor of New York or something like that, but this is his tweet. He said, I don't think Joe Rogan's a racist. That man interacts with and works with black people literally all the time. Do I know black friends of Joe's who would swear by him? Yes, I do. So this is just like the I'm not racist, I have a black friend argument, which is like the stupidest shit of all time. Another one, I don't have the exact like tweet or whatever, but I've seen a lot of people bringing out the fact that he has had Daryl Davis on his podcast. I think that's his name, right? Yeah, he's had Daryl Davis on his podcast, which if you don't know, Daryl Davis is he's a black man who's famous for basically going to KKK rallies and kind of like getting their point of view and like talking to them. And he's like brought a lot of like the prominent figures of the KKK out of the movement. So Joe's had him on his show. And I think this is also kind of a weird argument. I listened to this show, by the way. This is a really good episode. And I find Daryl Davis really interesting. He has done a TED Talk, too, that I find really interesting and valuable, and that I think you should check out. But I think that's also making the argument of every single person he's ever had on his show, he agrees with. He's had people like Ben Shapiro on his show, which he's debated on a lot of issues. And, like, I don't think everyone he's had on his show he agrees with. I don't watch a ton of Joe Rogan, so I could be mistaken by this, but last I checked, he has had some like pretty heated debates on his show. And so, yeah, anyways, I think that's going to be about it for today's video on Joe Rogan. Do you agree with me? Do you not? What are your thoughts on this situation? Let me know down in the comments below. Twitter is TPL Owen if you want to follow me and see some of my shitty takes over there. And that's about it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.